all to help counter Ukraine's brutal aggression that's happening because of Russia. All to help counter Ukraine's brutal aggression that's happening because of Russia.
This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Thursday morning. Let's talk about the statements from Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son. I have a bunch of pigeons right here who are joining us for this conversation, for this news update. So that was Joe Biden, the President of the United States, addressing the American people, addressing the entire world. And Joe Biden wanted everybody to know that after consultation with Lloyd Austin, who was to his left, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to his left, Secretary of State Antony Blinken to his right, after consulting with the Pentagon, Joe Biden made the decision to send 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. These tanks will be available in about a year. And according to Joe Biden, these tanks would help the Zelensky regime fight Ukrainian aggression. Joe Biden's words, not mine. But this gaffe from Joe Biden was actually quite fitting, given the panicky statement from the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock earlier in the day, where she said that we are fighting a war against Russia. We, Germany, the United States, the European Union, we are fighting a war against Russia. Now, Annalena Baerbock, she thought that these words would be a rallying cry for all of Europe to stay united as this conflict progresses and as the Zelensky regime crumbles and as the situation in Donbass for the Ukraine military approaches catastrophic levels. Annalena Baerbock thought that this speech would be some sort of rallying cry to tell everyone in Europe and everyone in Germany that we are fighting a war against Russia, completely unaware about the historical significance of saying those words. As a German foreign minister, to say those words, she was completely unaware of the gravity of her statement. This is the chief diplomat for Germany, the foreign minister, the chief diplomat for Germany, a Green Party leader. The Green Party, once upon a time, many, many decades ago, people used to think of the Green Party as a party of peace. That was Annalena Baerbock. Now, one of the parliament members, MPs for the AfD, which is often labeled a far-right party in Germany. The media labels them as far-right. Sometimes they label them as a violent far-right party. Anyway, one of the MPs, Mr. Peter Bistrom, who I talked about in a video a couple of days ago, he's an MP for the AfD. He was addressing Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, and he said that Scholz would, and I quote, go down in history as a leader who had negated the never again tenet long espoused by Berlin. According to the AfD lawmaker, this principle was taken to mean, among other things, abstention from weapons exports to conflict zones. He also went on to remind fellow MPs that the Chancellor of Germany bears special responsibility for the victims of World War II, including those in the Soviet Union. Bistrom suggested that Scholz's latest decision was in stark contrast to the legacy of his great social democratic predecessors, such as Willy Brandt and Helmut Schmidt, who had done a lot for peace and reconciliation. Quote, millions of German citizens are asking themselves, why? What for did you do that? The AfD politician claimed as he was addressing Olaf Scholz. So the German foreign minister, top diplomat, Green Party leader, is saying that Germany and the European Union and the collective West is at war with Russia, is fighting a war with Russia. And the far right, AfD, what is labeled as the far right AfD, is calling for peace. Greens calling for war and escalation. AfD calling for peace. This is the world we live in. Zelensky, it was his 45th birthday yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, and Zelensky, he got his big weapons present, courtesy of the collective West, and he went on to then ask for fighter jets and long-range missiles. So not even a day goes by from the announcement of Leopard 2 tanks from Germany and Abrams 1s from the United States, where Zelensky comes out and says, that's all well and good that we're getting these tanks, the German tanks, in 3-4 months, the Leopards in a year. But what we really need right now, what we really, really need are long-range missiles, ATACMS, and F-16 fighter jets. Now, upon hearing Zelensky's ask, the government of Slovakia, they said, well, I don't know about F-16s, but Mr. Zelensky, what we can do for you is we can provide some MiGs. We can provide some MiG-29 fighter jets. The planes are now at one of Slovakia's bases, and we are now ready to discuss the transfer of these aircraft to Ukraine. We are waiting for a decision from the Slovak government. This is a statement from the defense minister of Slovakia. Slovakia also said that they will be providing Soviet T-72 tanks to the armed forces of Ukraine in exchange for Western equipment, according to the country's Ministry of Defense. So the next escalation is going to be fighter jets. That is the next wonder weapon. And tanks are one thing, but fighter jets, that's a whole different ball game. The European Union, the leaders of the EU, the collective West, they are on the escalation escalator, and they can't get off. A fantastic term that Alexander said yesterday during his Q&A on Locals, the Duran.locals.com. The escalation escalator. No matter what EU officials do at this point in time, the only way is up that escalator. They cannot find a way down, because any EU leader outside of Viktor Orban in Hungary, if they say that they will not be sending weapons to Ukraine and not escalating, they then receive all of the blame from their peers, from other EU leaders, from collective West neocon think tanks, and from collective West neocon media. And so they find themselves consistently escalating. And now you're talking about fighter jets, F-16s. And you have to wonder, these F-16s, if and when they do enter the theater of battle, where exactly are they going to be taking off from? Who is going to be piloting these F-16s? Ukrainian pilots? Possibly, yes. NATO pilots? Possibly, yes. What runways are they going to use? What airbase are they going to use, given the fact that Russia, from what I understand, pretty much destroyed all of the air bases in Ukraine? And if there are any more air bases left, well, then Russia will destroy those as well. But I don't think that Ukraine is going to be in a position to launch sorties from Ukraine territory, which would mean that these F-16s would be attacking Russia, attacking the Russian military in Ukraine, maybe even attacking Russia itself, i.e. Crimea. These F-16s would be taking off of air bases in the European Union. And so citizens of the EU, they have to ask themselves, what does it mean for fighter jets to take off from air bases in Poland or Slovakia or in Romania and to go after Russian military and possibly to go after Crimea? What exactly does that mean for those countries from which these F-16s are taking off from? What is Russia's response to that? I don't know. What do you guys think? How does Russia respond to that? Because you know that as you're on this escalation escalator, Alexander really needs to copyright trademark that term. As you're on this escalation escalator, the F-16s and these fighter jets are going to be pushed to attack more and more. They're going to be pushed to enter Crimea. They're going to be pushed to attack Crimea. And yes, the Russians have all the air defense systems, and the Russians also have the fighter jets, and the Russians have escalatory dominance. But you see where I'm getting at with all of this? Now, I'm sure the Russians will do everything that they need to do in order to prepare for not only the tanks, but the next level of escalation, which will be the fighter jets. And I'm confident that the Putin government will do everything in their power to try and avoid an escalation, a direct escalation with NATO. But that's coming from the Russian side. What about the NATO side, which wants the escalation? And what about European Union leaders and collective West leaders who simply cannot say enough? They cannot say stop. And they're afraid to say stop. They're afraid. They're afraid of being the leader, the country that did not give Zelensky what he wants, that did not give the warmongers in NATO, that did not give the warmongers in NATO what they want. No leader wants to be that president or that prime minister. So they're all saying yes to whatever is asked of them. They're afraid of the media. They're afraid of the think tanks. Listen to what the president of Mexico, Mr. Obrador, said just the other day. This is a fantastic statement from Obrador. The global oligarchy uses media influence to subjugate governments. For example, Germany did not want to get much involved in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And contrary to the will of the German population, most Germans, the government decides to send more weapons to Ukraine. Spot on from the Mexican president. The global oligarchy uses media influence to subjugate governments. Listen to this video from the Council of Foreign Relations. Another one of these neocon, neolib, neocon, deep state think tanks, which exerts influence and pushes collective West leaders to stay on the escalation escalator. Listen to this video.
Evelyn, are you seeing any places that you think regimes are faltering? We have a lot of authoritarian leaders out there. If you look you're looking at a regime in Iran that is looking a little unstable. Putin, are you seeing any signs of cracks in terms of stability there? Could that be a surprise, a 2023 surprise? North Korea? Any place that you're looking at in terms of a potential regime change that could destabilize a region or the world?
Well, obviously, a big one would be Russia, but I don't think they're on the precipice there. I think things have to get worse economically, and there have to be many more body bags and, frankly, military losses before there's a change in the government in Moscow.
That was analyst and international affairs expert Evelyn Farkas, part-time director of the McCain Institute think tank, big surprise, responding to a question from reporters about when to expect the fall of so-called authoritarian regimes in Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Quote, "We need many more body bags." She also said, I quote, "I would like to see a change of power in Russia. Things have to get a lot worse there economically, and there have to be a lot more body bags, military casualties, before we see regime change in Moscow. Part-time director of the McCain Institute think tank, speaking at the Council of Foreign Relations. Regime change. Their mind is still fixated on regime change. It's an admission as well that whatever they threw at Russia did not work. She's admitting it. But at the same time, she's saying that we're not going to stop until we destroy Russia. What is happening in Ukraine right now? We have another situation in Ugledar. It looks like the Russians have either encircled Ugledar or are close to encircling Ugledar, or are fighting in the city center of Ugledar, or are close to fighting in the city center of Ugledar. This is another big defeat for the Ukraine military. According to the Telegram channel Slavyangrad, they say that Ugledar is a heavily reinforced fortress and a key stronghold in the area that is protecting the flank of the Ukrainian Marinka Kurakova line from the south. It has enormous consequences, and its fall will inevitably lead to the fall of Marinka and Imperial Kurakova. The Russians continue to advance. They continue to grind down the Ukraine military. They're coming from all directions. Ugledar, Zaporozhye, Bakhmut. You have 130,000 Belarusian troops in the north. You have the Zelensky regime in a panic, trying to get some sort of non-aggression pact to Lukashenko. Lukashenko is saying no chance. I actually saw a comment in my video yesterday where I talked about that. A commenter made a very smart statement. He said that what Lukashenko should do is sign the non-aggression pact and then break that non-aggression pact in much the same way that they signed the Minsk agreements and broke the Minsk agreements. That would be an interesting move from Lukashenko. Medvedev, he wrote on his Telegram channel, after all of the events from yesterday, he wrote this, and I quote, "They say that appetite comes with food from those suffering from an eating disorder in the form of bulimia or compulsive eating. The feeling of hunger is endless, constantly hungry. So the worthless bosses of Malorussia want more and more all the time. More tanks, more cars, more guns. Now some schmuck says they want planes and submarines. Okay, the planes are understandable. True, there are practically no normal runways left, and the Ukrainian sky is closed to us. But submarines are quite strong, especially taking into account that soon the Kiev regime will have no sea at all. Then we will have to sit in a boat in the middle of the Dnieper, learning the immortal, we all live in a yellow submarine. Although the submarine will probably be yellow and blue." Medvedev, you got to hand it to him. He puts out some pretty incredible posts. Some pretty incredible posts that he puts out. First of all, he says there will be no runways left in Ukraine, or there are practically no runways left in Ukraine, and the Ukrainian sky is closed to us. Then he says that the Kiev regime will have no sea at all soon. Obviously, he is talking about Odessa and the south of Ukraine. Perhaps he's hinting at something. It's hard to say with Medvedev. It is very hard to say. And then he references the Beatles and Yellow Submarine, twisting it to a yellow and blue submarine. Medvedev was actually, I believe he was actually talking about a statement from the one-time ambassador to Germany from the Ukraine, who is now the deputy foreign minister of Ukraine, and that is one Andrei Melnik, who believes that after the supply of German tanks, fighter jets, and submarines should also be transferred to Ukraine. That is a statement coming out of Melnik, who called Olaf Scholz a sulky or a sultry or a sexy liver sausage. I forget the word that he used. I think he used sultry or sulky. I don't know, but he called Olaf Scholz a liver sausage. He was making fun of Germany pretty much on a daily basis. Eventually, he was removed from ambassador of Germany, and instead of being fired and never allowed anywhere within 100 meters of the foreign ministry of Ukraine, this guy was given the position of deputy foreign minister. He also gave a radio interview, I believe, to either a Dutch podcaster or a German podcaster, where he praised Bandera. So that is Melnik. That is actually my clown world, to be quite honest. I think that is a fitting clown world. I think this is a fitting way to conclude this video. I will leave it there. From Ios Spiridon Church, a beautiful small church in the city center of Cyprus. TheDuran.locals.com. Look for us on Rockfin as well. Let's see if the church is open. Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. No, the church is not open. I was hoping to show everybody the church. Oh well. %10 off. Use the code GOODDAY. We are on all the video platforms, including Telegram, Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. Take care.